in summary that, there's so many religions, so what's the point of there being so many religions, and why isn't there? Am I right in summarizing?
Yeah.
So how would
No,
you?
rather not the point of, but why?
Why is there?
Yeah.
What is the
Well, from an Islamic position, the picture is pretty clear because the Creator informs humanity that every claimant, every man who was a prophet of God came with one singular message. So every prophet brought the same message. Now, if as a result of the expansion of understanding, human beings added or took things away from the information that the prophets brought, then you get this division that you call religion. But logic would dictate that if that has actually happened, then there must be a method of differentiation between them for us to be able to understand that this particular, as an example, statement was actually sent by the Creator for the benefit of humanity, as opposed to a second sentence that was added in,
Now,
which you can distinguish between. Yeah, sure.
you talk about the creators.
Yes.
Will we ever know what or who, or no, rather what
Yeah.
created this world, this planetary, the whole
Yeah.
universe?
Yes.
Will we ever be able to know?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah. When you say, will we be able to know? In what context do you mean know?
Well, I mean, a simple question any child asks: how did the universe?
Yeah.
How did the universe come?
Yeah.
To be?
Now, interestingly enough, and I appreciate the question, and it's a valid one. Interestingly enough, the Quran is the only one that actually supplies the answer to that.
Who wrote the Quran?
Now, that's a different question, but let's deal with one question at a time respectfully. Yeah? So, the Quran, interestingly, is the only one that is actually dealing with this particular question. Yeah? Because number one, it tells you the Creator created everything. Then, it actually also tells you that humanity itself is going to be discovering a whole vast array of subject matter which will lead them to the conclusion that this is the truth that is contained in the Quran. Now,
May I interrupt you
yeah,
just
sure,
for
of
a
course,
moment?
of course.
Who wrote the Quran?
Now, that's the second question. Are we satisfied with the first one? Yeah? If we look at who wrote the Quran, history testifies to the fact that there was a man called Muhammad. He received a revelation. Yeah? When the revelation came, he pronounced himself, because he was told in the revelation to pronounce himself after a few years that he was the prophet of God. Then, over a period of 23 years, very brief summary, over a period of 23 years, he received instruction, he received guidance. Many questions were asked by people. What do we do about this? What do we do about that? And answers came. In totality, revelation came to him. He then instructed people who could read and write to write down what he was telling them. They in turn were told to repeat it back to him so that it is established that what has been written down is accurate. So if you are going to ask in a singular manner who wrote the Quran, well, no, the Muslim would tell you it was actually revealed piecemeal over a period of 23 years, which constitutes the Quran.
Well, that's your explanation. You haven't convinced me.
No, it's not a question of convincing, it's a question of establishing whether it is true or not. Because if I were to ask you, for example, what did you specialize in, sir, if you don't mind me asking?
Business.
You're a businessman.
Yes.
Yeah, you went.
Ex-businessman.
Okay, retired. Yeah, you went to school. Yes, you learned certain things. Okay. Now let me ask you: if you cast your mind back, did you question the validity of everything that the teacher told you?
Yes.
You did.
Yes.
And what used to happen?
he explained. I mean, he
And did you understand?
most of it, yes.
Okay. What was it from what I said to you has not convinced you?
To express this in a few words, I just feel that you are trying to explain to me emotionally. You're trying to, you're trying hard to sort of convince me that certain things are right. See,
Now, I would suggest
Yeah.
that my question to you was, what in what I said did you not agree with? So there is no emotion attached to this because it was a factual statement.
Okay, so, well, what was the question? What was the question?
Okay, your question was, who wrote the Quran?
Yes.
And I responded to it. Now, from what I responded, what did you disagree with?
I can't really,
You can't recall what I said.
no, I can't really describe this in
Right,
one
I understand.
sentence or-
I understand. I understand. Well, basically, it is like this. In any aspect of life, we will usually disagree with something if we have sufficient information to be able to disagree with it. If we do not have sufficient information and we disagree with it, then it is an emotional reaction.
Well, to put it in a nutshell,
Yes.
I think that man is unable to explain certain things, how the universe was created.
Uh-huh.
I don't, well, you know, there I think opinions differ.
True.
No?
They do.
And, you know, I think the size of our brain.
Yes.
I mean, this is such an enormous, what should I say, array of questions and facts and so forth.
True.
To sort of come to a conclusion and know
Yeah.
that it is as one thinks it is.
True, I agree with you. But now, if I were to ask you, have you actually read the Quran?
I have read certain.
Right, you haven't read the whole Quran,
No,
have you?
no.
Now, I would suggest to you that your question is completely valid or your statement is valid, but in response, I would suggest that, look, you are absolutely right. One single human being cannot know everything. But I would also submit to you that the creator of the universe would be able to provide you the answers that you
You
require.
are already now speaking of the creator.
I made that as a statement. This book would also convince you whether there is a creator or not. And what is, as you asked earlier on, what is this creator? The answers are provided in here. And further, as I said to you, it is unique in respect of the fact that it actually tells you who created the whole of the universe. And in addition, it tells you that humanity itself is going to probe into the heavens and within themselves until it is going to be manifest to them that what has been revealed in here is the truth. Now, I would challenge any human being that, look, I agree with you in terms of opinions, in terms of facts, in terms of how to interpret facts. I agree with all that, but my contention would be, look, if you have managed to go through life, ask questions when the questions arose in your mind, then you need to take that one step further and ask yourself this, that if this book makes the claim, and this is a question which you validly requested or asked, then it becomes incumbent on one to actually read this fully and see whether it answers the questions or not.
All right. Now I go to next stand
Yes?
somewhere. You know,
Yes.
And he will show me the Bible.
Okay.
And there are two Bibles.
Okay.
Now, which Bible am I supposed to? And the Quran.
Yes.
And then there are hundreds of other small splittering
Very
religions,
yeah.
Which say, well, you know, what they say is not true. What
Very-
they say
yes.
is the only truth.
Again, very valid question, but again, it comes back to you were a businessman, yes? What business did you used to run? What business did you used to run?
I used to represent a chemicals company.
A chemicals company. Okay. If that company, yeah, was it a manufacturer of chemicals?
Yes.
It was a manufacturer of chemicals. You have research labs in the companies.
Yes.
Those research labs undertake research. When they come up across a product which doesn't suit the company, what do you used to do?
Can
They
you
would
repeat that
discount it.
question?
Right. Basically, you will have a few products which are under development, okay? One or two of them, the scientists in the lab find that this is not going to be of any benefit to the company. In fact, it is not coming out with.
I will interrupt you.
Sure.
That is that the company will not sell any products which are not beneficial. First to the country,
Yes.
and secondly to the buyer. or the user.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, if you develop a product like that, what do you do with it?
Sell it.
But if it isn't of benefit, it is discarded.
Yes.
Now, why is it discarded?
Because A, it is maybe useless
Yes,
or even dangerous,
absolutely.
or there is no
Yeah.
market for it.
Now, I agree entirely, but you will see that what you just said is logical and reasonable,
Yes.
but you are able to make the distinction because somebody has undertaken the necessary study
Yes.
to be able to come to the conclusion that this ought to be discarded.
Yeah.
Now, logically speaking, if we are able to do that in every aspect of our life, why do we find it so difficult to do the same with books that profess to be from a creator?
Well, because should I say that there are certain books of interest, certain books which you agree, certain books which you disagree with.
No, I can agree with that, but my question is not that.
No?
My question is in relation to the chemicals business I talked about, somebody had to do all that. I am saying we as human beings, where we see an element of benefit, we will put in all the necessary effort to establish what that benefit is and then use it either in business and sell it to the masses or sell it to a specialist company, whatever it may be. The point I'm making is that if we as human beings are able to logically and reasonably assess issues, products, to the extent that we come to a conclusion about them, I see no problem at all for any human being to do exactly the same and assess the claimants in the context of the books, like the Bibles, the Quran. As you said, if there are two Bibles, there's a Quran, which one? I am saying, well, look, if as a human being we are rational, reasonable enough to assess everything else in our life, why do we find it a problem to assess the very books that make this claim?
Well, your explanations and reasonings go a little bit beyond my.
Oh, I do apologize. I do
intellect.
apologize. I do apologize. No, basically it is like this, sir. I would suggest, and it is a humble suggestion, that you read the whole of this book
I don't.
because it will give you what you have never had before.
Well, let me
And
tell
it
you,
is free
yeah,
of charge, sir. It's a present to you.
I already have one.
Okay then.
Yes, yes.
Okay then, fair
I
enough.
also have a
Fair
list
enough.
of quotations
Uh-huh.
which are pretty difficult to explain.
Right, I understand. To understand. Yes, I understand. I understand, yes.
No,
But
I think that for a human being to claim that his religion is the one and only
yes,
is going a little bit too far.
I agree with you. And you will have noted in our brief conversation, I never made any claim like that. All I kept on saying to you is,
Have you
read this.
Yeah, yeah.
Why? Because as far as I'm concerned, the creator of the universe, the creator of all humanity, the creator of everything,
Well,
that creator should know how to address you.
well, you're trying to explain what the creator should do.
I'm not. I'm merely making a...
And you are also assuming
Yeah.
that there is a creator.
I agree. Now, what is the best way to find out? Read it. It's as easy as that.
Well, you know,
I'm not making...
I go to the next people and
Then
the
it is-
rabbi
yes.
will tell me,
Yeah.
read it. you
Then
know,
it is
I-
incumbent on you to read that.
Pardon me?
It is incumbent on you to also do that,
Yeah.
because that is the only way you will make a distinction. However, I will also suggest something to you. The Quran actually says in one statement that many revelations were sent before, many scripture was sent before. As I said at the start, many prophets were sent. They all came with the same message. But in the Quran, it actually says that it acts as an overseer over the previous. In other words, if you do find anything that doesn't seem to make sense or seems to be something that was added, okay, then the Quran will be able to clarify and correct whatever previously came.
I have my doubts, you know.
That's fine. I mean, you are fully entitled to the doubts, but until you actually study it, it is invalid to make that claim of doubt.
You know, one thing that sort of puts me off
Sure.
or makes me critical is,
Yes.
for instance, how the Muslim religion looks upon and treats that is the role of women.
Uh-huh.
Every time I see a woman in a veil like this, you know, I get angry, I get really angry.
Okay.
I think that men who allow or insist that their women go veiled through the world, you know, I get shivers. You know, black and everything, you know. And then in the hotel I have this morning there was a Muslim woman, all veiled and so forth, eating. How a man can stand for and stand a woman, have a woman behave like that. It makes me furious. This is what makes me
Right,
also
okay.
so skeptical about
Okay. What do you think of the nuns in Christianity?
the same. Absolutely
You have
the
you have
same.
difficulty.
Yes.
Now, if the woman voluntarily wants to dress like that, is there a problem with that?
There wouldn't be a problem. There
Yes.
wouldn't be a problem. But my suspicion is that a woman is made
Right. Okay.
and sort of.
Now,
yeah.
again, you are asking a valid question, and again, you can find the answer in the Quran. You see, the distinction, respectfully, the distinction you are not making, as I have stood here and spoken to you, I've told you that the Quran says X, Y, and Z. Every time I have referred you back to the Quran, there's a very simple reason for this. And you are right. If somebody is doing something, like you have just suggested, that you think it is being forced, I can readily agree with you, but if I were to turn around and say, okay, what is the evidence you have to confirm your suspicion?
Suspicion that a woman suffers.
Is being forced.
Yes,
What evidence can you provide me?
I can't.
Well, if you can't, then it only makes it logical and reasonable for us to establish evidentially whether what you are saying is the case. Because if it isn't, then you are carrying with you a false notion.
I'm not carrying a notion at all. I am carrying a question.
No, you never, it wasn't a question. You said very clearly, I may have misunderstood you. You said very clearly, but I suspect that they are being forced. Now, to me, that is a clear, exactly, you said that. Now, all I'm asking, look, I can agree with you, but what evidence can you proffer to me to establish this contention you have made?
Don't quite understand the question. But
Okay, basically I'm saying, have you spoken to a woman who has told you, my husband has forced me to wear it?
No, I have not.
So on
because
what
I
basis are you making this
because
positive sort of?
No, I suspect.
Okay, let's use the word suspect. Now, don't you think, logically speaking, for you to establish it, okay, you need to know what the actual stance is in Islam? before you can actually make a claim whether it is being forced or not. And if a woman came to you, and I want to know from you, if a woman came to you and said to you, I have decided I want to dress like this, would you, number one, would you understand? And number two, would you encourage her?
First question was,
would you understand her position if she decides she wants to dress like that? And number two, if she does voluntarily want to do that, would you encourage it?
well, I don't think that a woman, if not inspired by religion and by the Quran and so forth, I do not think that a woman, out of her own will willingly like to sort of walk around in a veil.
Okay. You will note that you are the one who is imposing now, because you are convinced that no normal sane woman would want to dress like that.
I am.
Then you are imposing it on a woman.
Why?
If you heard me carefully, I merely said, if I can just finish, sir. I merely said, if a woman came, I never even said a Christian woman, a Muslim, I just said a woman. If a woman came and said she wanted to dress like that, I asked you two things. One, would you accept her stance? And two, would you encourage it?
I would not.
Why not?
Because
if you
I
don't,
believe that there is a difference
yes,
in how shall I explain it now?
between the male and the female anatomy,
No.
the male and the female anatomy,
The thing is that I believe that
they are free, sir. Yes, absolutely, please.
I believe that every human being
Yes,
has the right, has the same rights.
I agree. Well, what has that got to do with the choice of clothing for a woman? And if you do not, as you said, number one,
I will tell you.
if I can just finish. Number one, you are okay with her being comfortable. But the second one, when I said, would you encourage it, you said no. My suggestion would be that if you are not going to encourage a woman because she wants to dress like that, then the next step is that you are going to impose on her what she should not dress as.
Well, now, the first human beings did not make any, and into and until
No,
Okay, sorry.
there's sandwiches and food.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, you're saying the first.
yes, when I mean there was no great difference in dress.
On what evidential basis are you making this claim? I'm sorry, I work on evidence, I'll be honest with you. Because anything we discuss, I think that the best way forward is to establish matters evidentially. Yeah? Now, I can agree with you that the first man and woman, I would suggest, wait a minute, for you to think like this, okay, it would have to be the very notion of Adam and Eve. Otherwise, there's the theory of evolution, which we would have to lean to. But on what basis are you making this claim about the first man and woman?
I think it comes naturally. There's no need for a basis. It just comes naturally.
So if I were to turn it around and say, well, actually, no. Yeah, they are free completely, sir. Yeah? I can equally say to you, well, actually, no. The first woman was dressed like that, and the man was dressed like this. What evidence can you now provide me to counter what I am saying?
Well, I mean, we could go on discussing this.
I agree with you. That is why I agree. You are right, absolutely. That is why I say the best way forward, and I make this clear. This has all the answers. Unless you read it, you will not be able to agree or disagree.
Well, I'm not interested so much in the Bible nor in the Quran. because I mean these have been written by human beings, and furthermore, what was I going to say now? I lost the thread. The mere presence or picture of a veiled woman being all covered up.
Yes.
By the way, also made up when she lifts her. And the man just being able to strut like this.
Yes.
You know, in shorts,
Yes.
a t-shirt and everything.
Yes, I agree.
This goes against my, what should I say?
I'm so glad, sir. What you are basically saying is it goes against your own prejudices.
Yes.
That's no problem. If you want to,
Why do you say prejudice?
I'll tell you, because when we touched on this point, I asked you a very clear question that if a woman came to you and said she wants to voluntarily dress like
no,
this,
I don't believe that.
there you are. You see,
I don't
you are.
believe that.
But now here is the point I made.
The evidence.
Now here it is. You see, the point I'm making is very clear. You need to make a distinction between what Islam is saying and what you personally believe. I made it very clear, and I'm asking you again, that if a woman came to you and told you, okay,
I would say yes. I would say okay. If
yeah,
you want, if
and
you want
would you
to.
encourage it? I asked you two questions. Number one, would you accept her position? You said yes, and I then said, okay, would you encourage it? You said no, and that is, and you at least you made the admission that it is your bias. Now, I would suggest.
Would you also ask the same questions to a woman?
Of course I would.
Yes.
I have no problem. As I said, I will base my position on evidence rather than what I personally feel, because I know that what I feel can be wrong many of the times. But how am I going to make that distinction between what is true and what isn't? I would suggest that a guide gives you that position. And I am saying that that guide is the Quran. Can I just give you this while we are at it? Whenever you have the opportunity, sir. Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah. How are you? Are you okay? I do apologize, sorry.
Just one
Yeah,
more question.
sure.
You know, do you think it is correct that a man is able to have up to 4 wives, and a woman cannot have 4 men?
The first question, up to 4 wives, no problem. I don't find a problem with that. The other way around, I find it a problem.
Yes.
Don't you find it a problem?
I find both a problem.
Now tell me the first one with 4 wives, what is the problem?
It's not fair.
Okay.
Absolutely not fair.
Okay. Now if the woman decides she wants to marry a man who is already married, do you have a problem with that?
A woman to have two men.
A woman decides to marry a man who she knows is already married. She voluntarily wants to marry him. Would you have a problem with that? Why? Again, it's your bias and your prejudice. Because you are denying the woman her right to choose who she wants to marry.
All right, if I say yes,
Then
do you think that is would you think that is acceptable?
like I told you, if I am being told that a woman has come to me and told me, I want to marry X, but he's already married. Now, here is a very important issue that you have brought up. How do I and you decide on which is the right course?
Well, I think it's...
Are we going to go on our personal experiences?
Well, you've answered.
Yes, I have. I've answered it. And to be honest with you, the other way around, it doesn't work. Yes?
Yes.
It just doesn't work. So you will note that, and I appreciate that we are all brought up with certain ideas, biases, prejudices, but and this is the point I started with, that a very important aspect has to be established here. That if you are going to make any kind of pronouncement, it ought to be based on evidence. If that evidence is amiss, then whatever opinion you are going to formulate, you must at least accept that it is based on ignorance. And 9 times out of 10, you will find the majority of human beings will come and say things, but when you calm it down and assess it, you will find, well, actually there isn't anything to be said. Now, oftentimes I find, and you have rightly brought it up, oftentimes I find many people make one accusation after another, and I say, wait a minute, shall we just actually look at it calmly, provide the evidence, thereafter assess the evidence logically, rationally, and reasonably. If we were going to do that, we will be able to arrive at conclusions that we wouldn't have even considered arriving at.
Can I just...
Of course you can, sir.
Now, when